are just trying to give meaning to corruption to understand how it works and what it is. When politicians misuse public funds, or when politicians grant job or contract to their sponsors or to their friends or families, if they are not qualified for that job or for that contract, is another form of corruption. When corporate entity bribe officials to get lucrative contract or jobs, is another form of corruption. Then we have other forms of corruption that are many at individual levels. Misuse of official vehicles is a corruption. When you have official vehicle and instead of you to use it for official work, you take it to your farm, you take it to your village, you give it to your wife to go and do a lot of things. It's a form of corruption. When you misuse office equipment, office materials, it's a form of corruption. When you appropriate public asset for private use, it's a form of corruption. When you partake in influence peddling, I know this, I'm related to this, I can get you this, I can get you that. All these are forms of corruption. But more importantly, abandoning project you started is a form of corruption as well. So these are critical issues I want us to understand, within which we are going to discuss. Where do we see corruption open? In government offices, in court, media, civil society, and across various sectors: health, education, sport, oil and gas, all these sectors. Now, effect of corruption. It erodes trust, weakens democracy, it hampers economic development, it increases inequality, it increases poverty, it increases social division, it increases environmental degradation, it reduces effectiveness of public investment and the infrastructure of any given country. Now, fraud triangle. Fraud triangle is a very old method of explaining various stages of corruption and why a particular corruption takes place, why an individual partake in a corruption. It's a framework used to explain the reason behind an individual decision. That is fraud triangle. We're going to understand that as it has three main components. Opportunity. If we go back, we can see it has opportunity, incentive, and rationalization. These three components are what make it possible for corruption to take place in any given place. Then we're going to explain each of the components now. We'll start with opportunity, then we'll go to incentive and rationalization. Opportunity. What is opportunity? It's a circumstances that allows fraud to occur. That is opportunity. But we'll go further. But the good thing about opportunity is that organization has complete control over it. If there is corruption in Nddc, for instance, because of opportunity, the good thing is that Nddc can now control that itself. We're going to explain that as we go further. How do we have opportunity? And why do we have opportunity? Weak internal control. That is number one. When we have internal control as the mechanism put in place by an organization to ensure accountability of its processes. When such mechanisms are weak or not strong or are not qualitative enough, then you now create a room for opportunity. Then what are the signs of weak internal control? Number one, you have poor separations of duties. When you don't have a clear demarcation as to who is supposed to do what at each point in time, then it's a sign of poor or weak internal control mechanism. Lack of supervision, proper supervision. Poor documentation processes. All these are signs of weak internal control, because if there is no proper documentation process as to who does what at any point in time, then somebody can hide under that and commit an offense without actually people knowing him as the person who did it. Number two, poor tone at the top. It's very, very important, and it's a critical aspect in showing weak internal control. What is poor tone at the top? We are talking about the management. When the management of a particular organization are not actually exhibiting themselves in a manner that will show that they are outstanding and upright, then it's a sign of weak internal control. How do you know that? It's asset declaration. When and how? When do you feel your asset declaration as a leader of an organization? How did you feel it? What is your lifestyle? When you have, these are indicators of weak internal control. In short, when upper management of an organization is not showing, when upper management is not showing enough integrity or is not being honest to the subordinates, it's an indication of weak internal control. Inadequate accounting policies, incentive and pressure. I hope we are there. We are talking about opportunity. We have finished up talking about opportunity. Now we're talking about incentive or pressure. Individual mindset toward committing fraud. This aspect, the entity or other organization has no control over it much, because it's talking about individual mindset of that person at that time. What are the things that provide incentive? Wanting to earn more money, paying personal bills. Probably you have your children in schools and you take them to very, very expensive school, then you must pay. These are incentives that will make you to commit fraud. If you partake in some social vices like gambling, too much alcoholism, and all of that, maybe womanization. I'm not sure. Can it cause corruption? Yes. Pressure from peer groups as well. Family issues. All these are incentives to corruption. Pressure from office to deliver. This is critical. Sometimes if your office puts you under serious pressure that you must reach a particular goal, that can be an incentive for you to commit fraud. Rationalization is a third aspect of fraud triangle. Justification to commit fraud. It's internal in order. You try to justify why will you do this thing. Let's look at it here. Sometimes if you feel you are treated wrongly or badly or unjustly, that can be a trigger for you to start to commit fraud in an office environment. Upper management ladder is doing it as well. When you realize that the leadership at the top are doing it, you can do it as well. You feel you have right to do it as well. When you realize that there is no solution to this problem, it's a serious issue, there is no solution, there is money abundant money, rather, nobody is attending to the money, and nobody is listening to you and all of that. You feel, then let me be part of it. Now, deterrence. Deterrence is the norm, not prevention. As we move towards new method of fighting economic and financial crime, we realize that we have to start talking about deterrence, not only prevention. What is prevention? Prevention involves identifying and stopping the existing fraud. That's what prevention does. But what about deterrence? Deterrence uses different tools to filter and rank potential fraud based on opportunity to occur. What deterrence does is to look at the possibility of occurrence of an offense and to stop it before it happens. It involves an analysis of conditions and proceedings that affect fraud enablers. Then what are the fraud enablers? We can go back to the opportunity, to the incentive, and to the rationalization. All these are part of fraud enablers. So what deterrence does is to look at the possibility of such opportunity. If we're talking about opportunity, we are talking about what? Weak internal control. Then is internal control proper? Is it strong enough? Is there any possibility of circumventing the rules? When you stop that, you are now putting deterrence procedure in place. It is a proactive identification and removal of causal and enabling factors of fraud. It simply means improving organizational procedure to eliminate causal and enabling factors. Critical tools of deterrence. Very important. Thorough background check on potential staff before employment is very critical because, like we said earlier, there are other factors that you cannot control. When you talk about opportunity, the entity can control the opportunity. But when you talk about rationalization, entity has little influence on rationalization. It has to do with individual person. Now, that is why you need to actually know who you are employing. Setting up code of conduct or code of ethics is very important. Training and retraining of staff. Policies that will provide hope and clear expectation to the staff. This is very, very important. When you are working in an organization and that organization has a clear mandate, has a clear goal, and there is plan toward achieving that goal, which you know you are part of it, and in the long run, it will go to help you. You have a good retirement plan, you have this, you have that. It reduces the chances of rationalization. So it's very critical. We at EFCC, for instance, when the executive chairman comes, that is the first thing we did. What is the strategic plan? So that each and every person is involved. Everybody knows where we are now, where we are going. How do we intend to go? Now, every person, every staff will be part of the process. Now, we are not saying that it will eliminate it completely, but it reduces the chance of rationalizing why you need to partake in a fraud. Yes, I have said this one. Provision of policies that will guide the behavior of staff and making sure there are consequences for defaulters. These are all critical tools in what? Deterrence. Very important. Government-citizen partnership. Whistleblower policy and engaging civil society organizations. They are all part of deterrence. So entity as an organization, you need to have a robust citizen partnership From there, you can be able to understand what is going on in your organization and whether there are some fraud taking place there with your knowledge or without your knowledge. The civil society organizations, the whistleblowers, and all of that, you need to engage them as a deterrence policy. Yes, critical to still. Strong internal control, proper segregation of duties, proper authority, proper security system to safeguard cash and document. We are now talking about physical security system to put in place. Routine evaluation and assessment of internal control measures put in place. So when you have internal control measures, you are not only to put the internal control measures and go and sit down and think that you have done. No, you need to continue to review the internal control measures to make sure that they are properly and where they are, and improve the quality of the operational procedure. Surprise audit, transfer of employees from time to time. All these are critical tools in deterrence. Conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, we should know corruption is a monster which, if not dealt with, will bring many organizations down. For that, employees should embrace good work ethics and perform their work with zeal and hard work. With this, I'm sure results will be achieved and counted. Two disciplinary measures should also be put in place. Property should be handed over to the relevant authority for questioning. Conclusion continued. Charges of corruption now play a more critical role in our daily activities, especially during the current dispensation. So we should have that in mind. Governments all over the world have fallen as a result of corruption. Careers of world-renowned public figures were ruined as a result of corruption. Reputation of well-respected organizations badly tarnished on all account of corruption. We at EFCC, under the leadership of Mr. Bauer, we are ever ready to continue with the fight against.
Please, another round of applause for the commander. I guess some of us have questions to ask. Maybe we change the style now. You can ask your questions rather than asking you to stand up and ask your questions. Please, if you have questions to ask, quickly write it down. We'll pick it up from you and give it to the commander for him to address or answer us. While we do that, we will soon be joining the next resource person virtually. The next resource person is Dr. Elvis Agalafa, former Secretary ICPC Abuja. He shall take us on work ethics and value reorientation, a panacea to corruption. That will come up as soon as we are done with the question and answer section. Please put down your questions so that I will pick it up from you. Any questions? Can we come? Signal us. Mr. Nat, please go around and see if. Please, your name and your question.
My name is Dr. Silva Upala Charles, President, Garden City Premier Business School. My question to you is this: what are the challenges you have been facing, in fighting corruption in Nigeria? Your challenges.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Definitely, fighting corruption involves a lot of challenges, no doubt about that one. But more importantly, we are all aware of the issue of legal challenge. Legal challenge, not necessarily because the judges are not doing their best, but because some of our laws need to be reviewed, especially in terms of quick dispensation of justice. From the day you charge somebody to court to the final completion of the case, either for him to be convicted or discharged, what is the average time? We are all aware of politicians being prosecuted by EFCC. That has taken a lot of time. We are not blaming the judges, but definitely we are blaming the system. I know efforts are being made to correct this, especially with the recent introduction of ACJA, Administrative Criminal Justice Act, which try to reduce the length of time and a lot of that. But we are still facing, I believe, I want to state that this for now is our major challenge. Thank you, sir. Let me go back here. Okay, hello. Is investigation on every account predicted on petitions only? I will say no. EFCC has mandate to investigate not only account individual, whether there is a petition or not. We can cause investigation on individual when we realize that his lifestyle is not in conformity with his earning. So also any account that we believe there are some suspicious activities taking place in the account, we have mandate to investigate that, and we do investigate that a lot and every day. The second question is, when Mr. President's daughter used the presidential jet, was she prosecuted? I don't know whether the presidential daughter using presidential jet is a criminal offense. It's not criminal offense, we should know. EFCC has mandate to investigate only criminal offenses. Thank you. Okay. You say, how effective have you been in deploying enlightenment and this in fight against corruption? I don't know I didn't understand the second one. But I want to inform you that specifically we have a department in EFCC called PAD, that is Public Affairs Department. It's a directorate. Their responsibility is to engage with citizens in terms of enlightenment and awareness. So we are doing that at the headquarters level and equally at the commands level. Prevention and deterrence is largely unclear. Yes, but I think it's clear. Let me just go back small. Prevention seeks to stop corruption from when it is taking place, to prevent it from taking place. But deterrence, the aim is to make sure that you do not have even opportunity to commit the offense. That's just it. This one, you won't have opportunity. There is no opportunity for you to commit. But prevention is when, in the process of committing the offense, you are prevented from doing that. Of course, it's vague, the difference, but for us, in trying to make sure that we succeed in eradicating economic and financial crime, we take that very important because we need to deter you, not only prevent you. Thank you. Yes, in the fight against corruption, there's great cows. All we know that we are public officers. We are doing our work professionally. You should understand that there is always different from reality and perception. We are dealing with reality, what do we see, what we have on the ground, what has been reported to us, and all of that. And this is different from perception as well. But how do you know that we are fighting corruption sincerely? Is by you reporting the matter. Try and report the matter to the EFCC and see how EFCC handle it. It's better than for you to just sit down and assume based on what you are seeing and all information you are hearing and all gossip and all of that. You need to partake directly with the commission. Report a particular complaint. Is it against a public officer? Is it against an individual? EFCC has different ways of receiving complaints. Right from direct complaint, which you can go, to anonymous as well. You can complain without even mentioning your name. Right now we have an app, Eagle Eye. I hope are we aware about that? Eagle Eye app. Mr. Dele, I hope you have come with flair. If you don't, please send, if we can get it at the office, send so that we can distribute to people here. We have Eagle apps, which gives you opportunity to complain from your handset without even going to EFCC or even writing petition. What you only need is, for instance, you have a property which you believe that belongs to a particular individual who is a government officer or public officer who from his earning cannot earn that, cannot build that property, or an estate. Just take a picture of that property, and the person you are suspecting the owner, and send to us. We have over 15 million downloads. 15 million. It was launched last 2 months, I believe, by the executive chairman. But as at last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we have over 15 million downloads of that apps all over the country. Here in EFCC Port Harcourt, I receive petitions based on that apps. I think an average of 200, 250 monthly. We are all working on them. So try to engage with the commission and see how we operate and all of that. Thank you. Why is EFCC insisting that bank officials must declare their assets when they are not public servants? Yes. Why is EFCC insisting bank? Yes. But it's a law. It's not EFCC that just wake up overnight and say bank officials must declare their assets. No. It's a law. It's only that over time, we don't seem to appreciate the law and or even enforce it. But now EFCC, and it's based on experience as well. There are a lot of investigations, high-profile investigations that indicated that the public officials were using bank officials to hide their assets. And because bank officials, like you said, are not public servants, so they are not required to declare their asset at public code of conduct bureau, they can easily hide such asset. Now, the FCC realized that, yes, but there is law that foresee this kind of thing and make it mandatory for all bank officials to do that. So we are just trying to make sure that that law has been enforced. What effort the EFCC chairman is making to be independent? EFCC chairman is independent as far as we are concerned. I am here as a zonal commander, but I will tell you that I was never ever influenced in doing my work by anybody, talk less of EFCC chairman. EFCC chairman is doing his work, and that's all. Yes, good question. How will the whistleblower policy helped in fighting corruption, and what are the bottlenecks? Bottlenecks, yes. But we are all aware of money that were recovered in Kaduna last 1.5 or last 2 years. About, I think, over $30 million US. This came as a result of whistleblower. The money now is at the eve of final forfeiture to the federal government. In Ikoyi, last 2 years as well, huge sum of money were equally recovered by the commission. They are all as a result of whistleblower. So it has helped a lot and is still helping. Bottlenecks, yes, there is. Sometimes we waste a lot of resources on lies because you rely on what whistleblower tell you, but sometimes out of malice or political differences or personal differences or reason best known to them, they always bring informations that are not true and subject EFCC to a lot of manpower, energy, and time before we arrive at conclusion that the information, because we have to equally subject such information to critical intelligence review. So these are some of the bottlenecks, and probably recovering money, because you have to wait, because there are some percentage, but you have to wait until the determination of the case for you to get their percentage. And sometimes some of the whistleblowers are not that patient. Yes. I think I have I've gone through the questions, if there is.
Sorry, sir. I just want some clarification here. The first one has to do with, I want you to properly enlighten us on what you mean by recovered funds. Now let me ask, recovered funds, should they be forfeited to the federal government, or they should go back to the initial owner of that particular fund? That is one. Okay, that is two now. Then secondly, it has to do with freezing of accounts. When you say accounts are to be frozen, to be frozen now, does the EFCC have inherent power to freeze accounts? Because what I do know is that you cannot freeze any account until on the orders of the account. But what we see recently is that EFCC, ICPC, and all that, they get up and freeze people's accounts. So I really want you to, lighten us on these areas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The first question, the issue of recovered funds is always determined at the court level. When we are, be it individual or state or local government or federal government, the money must belong to one of these, either private or public at which level? Is it state, local government, or federal government? I think what normally we do and what normally happens at that level is that when you charge a particular matter to court and you request for interim forfeiture order, then final forfeiture order, then any interest party will still go through the court. It only needs to go through the court and establish to the court that, yes, this money that has been stolen belongs to me. Belongs to me. Now, EFCC, if it believes it is convinced that the money belongs to you, will not oppose that order. Now, now court will now give pronouncement as to what happened to the funds, whether to go back to the victim. Who is the victim? It happens a lot. Even private, not only state or local government. Private people go when we recover money and we request for interim forfeiture order or final forfeiture order, as the case may be, or property. The victim will now go to court and indicate his own interest to the court, and now court will give pronouncement. That's normally what happens, sir. The second one is the issue of account, freezing of account, yes. Money Laundering Act gives us that. It gives us that privilege or lineage to freeze a particular account where we suspect there is proceed of account in that, proceed of crime in that account, and now go and request for court order after 72 hours, which will have to forward to the bank or the relevant agency, which will make it valid. But we know the process of acquiring court order to freeze an account may allow the bad guy to quickly withdraw the money. That is why the Money Laundering Act gives us that privilege to be able to quickly put that money on hold and go to the court and acquire the necessary document and forward to the bank. And we have been doing that consistently. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, I hope I'm not taking your time. Yeah, if the law is that you must always obtain a court order before you freeze that account. And allow me to use this expression now. You circumvent that, and then you go ahead to freeze somebody's account. Are you not infringing on that person's right?
Me correct. What I said is that the Money Laundering Act gives us that right. It's in the law. It's nothing circumventing. It gives us right to keep money on hold by freezing that money. Within which we are mandated to approach a court and acquire an order which will permanently put that money on hold. That's it. Thank you.
Please, let's applaud him once again. Thank you, sir. Maybe there will be another day for further questions and further clarifications. Thank you so very much. Ogalafa. Dr. Ogalafa is the former Secretary ICPC Abuja. He will take us on work ethics and value reorientation, a panacea to corruption. That will be done virtually. I guess it's on now. We trust that that will run us for the next 30, 40 minutes. Thereafter, we'll go for lunch and close for the day. I sincerely thank you for your kind attention and participation. Let's further do that as Dr. Evis will come online. Dr. Evis Ogala, please can we hook him on? Dr. Evis Ogalafa is on now. Please, let's do well and join him. He will take us on work ethics and value reorientation. Go ahead, sir. Dr. Evis, we are ready.
Okay, do you have the slide with you? Okay, if you can hear me, I'm going to be talking about work ethics and value reorientation, a panacea to corruption. Of course, my names are Elvis Ogalafa, immediate past secretary ICPC, and I'm also a member of the American Anti-Corruption Institute. Are we together, please? We are with you, sir. Okay, fantastic, fantastic. So the slide with the topic is very, very clear. And I have a background information that talks about how people, are you on the second slide? Because I can't see your slide on my screen.
Your slides are not on the screen. It's not on the screen.
Okay, my slide is not on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, are you with me now?
Yes.
Okay. Work ethics and value reorientation, a panacea to corruption. Of course, my names are Elvis Ogalafa, the immediate past secretary of ICPC, and also a member of the American Anti-Corruption Institute. I'd like to say thank you for inviting me to this anti-corruption sensitization program. I would not like to take you through the slides. I have a background information there that shows people struggling to go up, and those who are at the top are preventing those below from getting to the top. The next slide talks about why we are here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to share knowledge about moving Nddc forward. I think that is the key word here, moving Nddc forward. And also to discuss work ethics and integrity in the workplace. We are also going to refresh our thought process on corruption and anti-corruption. As you are aware, I know that most of you are aware of the issue of corruption in Nigeria. We're also going to look at the need to be a resourceful change agent in Nddc. And we are going to appreciate the significance of this seminar and of course see it as a reflective opportunity to change our attitude to work. I have decided to look at 4 sections to this presentation. Section A talks about the national security strategy, the national anti-corruption strategy, respect for the rule of law, and how the absence of work ethics can affect national security threat. Section B is leadership, organizational culture, work attitude, personal conduct, and organizational ethics and structure. Section C will talk about corruption and how it can escape, how you can escape corruption from your establishment. Then Section C, we'll be talking about the Section C rather, we'll be talking about okay, corruption and how to escape, and then the issue of petty and grand corruption. We'll also be talking about institutional corruption and the wait for your turn syndrome. Section D will discuss the challenges, and then we promise to do away with bad habits, and then we'll conclude. National values. National values just a minute, please. In Chapter 1 of the National Security Document, signed in December 2019, it declares that our nation is founded upon certain values which undergird our way of life and the pursuit of our collective prosperity and progress. They form our strategic interests and are the guiding principles of our engagement with the world. We recognize that our national security is built on the defense and propagation of these values. What are these values? The federal government is committed to the ideals of freedom, quality, and justice. We consider the sanctity of human life to be paramount, and we committed to enhancing human dignity and ensuring that our actions are humane. This is possible if we have peace, security, prosperity, rule of law, which are fundamental to our democracy. And of course, you know, the Nddc is a democratic institution established to provide certain services to the people of the Niger Delta region. National interest. Our interests are the preservation of Nigerian sovereignty, territorial integrity, security and welfare of our people. In this case, the welfare of our people are domiciled in the Niger Delta, that we will preserve democracy, guarantee human security, and combat all threats to peace in our territory. These national objectives with protection of Nigerian people and territory. The government of Nigeria is committed to protecting its people, economic interests, infrastructure, and way of life. This entails deploying the full spectrum of national power to ensure a safe and secure nation. To this end, we will continue to strengthen our security and law enforcement agencies, as well as upscale our overall national resource endowment to comprehensively and decisively address all domestic and external threats in Nigeria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We will foster a culture of preparedness within our strategic institutions and build the resilience of our communities against the risks and hazards that pose the greatest threat to Nigerian people while actively reducing our vulnerabilities. And I'm sure you know that there is a strong economic interest in the Niger Delta. The Nddc is superintending and providing service for close to 30 million people in the Niger Delta, if not more. And whatever happens in Nddc should be taken seriously, because the welfare of these 30 million indigenes of this country are in the hands of the staff, employees, and political office holders of the Nddc. Now you may ask me, what is the connection between ethics, values, reorientation, and national security? Now there is a connect, because every democratic institution of government is obligated to ensure the following exists in the organization: peace and enhance human dignity. This we must ensure in every organization. There has to be equity, fairness, and justice, high work ethics, and performance to achieve set goals. And that is why we are here. Institutionalize anti-corruption processes and ensure financial prudence. Provide conducive atmosphere and welfare for its employees within the umbrella of the rule of law. Eliminate and abhor corrupt practices of all forms. And I'm sure that is one of the objectives of this seminar. The next is the anti-corruption component. Already there exists a national anti-corruption strategy. And assuming that strategy is effective, it ought to achieve the following goals: national interest, values, again, values and integrity, transparency and accountability. These must be found in every organization, whether it's Nddc, whether it is NNPC. National interest, values, integrity and transparency and accountability. Then promote public consciousness that corruption is an abnormality and should be resisted. Citizens must believe and accept that a corruption-free society is godly and considered normal in the affairs of states. I repeat, citizens must believe, citizens, not only staff of Nddc, must believe and accept that a corruption-free society is godly and considered normal in the affairs of states. The public perception, the public expects the government should promote good governance and high standards of integrity in the public and private sectors, and reward for credibility and integrity and highest standards of professional ethics in workplace and labors. National framework for combating corruption. Now, corruption has reached a level where it cannot be treated locally. There is international involvement in all spheres. People from the United Nations, from all walks of life, come together to sit to discuss the issue of corruption. Why is there corruption? What are the causes of corruption? And so contemporary efforts are based on international integrity and anti-corruption instruments. The United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, and of course the ECOWAS Protocol, given effect by domestic anti-graft and other related laws. The National Framework. The National Framework, Section 15, Subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, empowers the state to abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office. Code of conduct to guide the conduct of public servants and officers in the discharge of their duties. Fifth schedule. Many laws prohibit and prescribe punishment for corrupt practices. Various professional codes of ethics and practice. This is the national framework. The national framework also, the code for public officers. No conflict between office and personal interest. Do not operate foreign accounts. Do not receive double emoluments. This is very rampant, especially in the academia. Do not engage in private business except family. Do not receive or demand gratification. Do not abuse office. Do not abuse office. What is the connection between ethics, values, and reorientation and national security? I think I've talked about that. We have talked about this earlier. And then what are these values? These values are just simply honesty, trustworthiness, transparency, integrity, accountability, hard work, teamwork, all this you know already. Ladies and gentlemen, if we just ponder here for a few seconds, this is from Professor Kladaki. He said that we are a polity of takers rather than givers. And what we love to take is state power, which we privatize for personal enrichment. Corruption is more than missing money. It is about people's life. This we must understand. There's a pictorial description of what I'm trying to say here. Corruption is more than missing money. Yes, we hear that XYZ amount of money is missing Nddc, is missing the NNPC, is missing the FIRS, but it is more than that. Look at the squalor in which people live in. And Nddc has responsibility, the mandate. The employees of Nddc have the mandate to ensure that this does not happen. The same thing here. 1/3 of stolen 6.2 billion will, of course, help to bring about joy and happiness in the faces of people. Good roads and Medicare. Social murder is a term coined by Frederick Engels in 1845 and used to describe murder committed by the political and social elite, where they knowingly permit conditions to exist. And that is why we are here. Conditions exist. That is lack of ethics. That is lack of values. Where the poorest and the most vulnerable in society are deprived of the necessities of life and are placed in a position in which they cannot reasonably be expected to live and will inevitably meet an early and unnatural death. Let me repeat this. Ethics and values are important and key in institutions, in our democratic institutions. And that's why this Frederick Engels is saying that it is a social murder. You are committing a social murder if you don't have ethics standards in your establishment. You are committing a social murder if there is no rule of law. There is abuse of rule of law in your establishment. And so he says that it's used to describe murder committed by people like us, people like you and I, political and social elites, where they knowingly permit conditions to exist. That is crooked ways where the poorest and the most vulnerable in society are deprived of the necessities of life and are placed in a position in which they cannot reasonably be expected to live and will inevitably meet an early or natural death. So, what is organizational culture, ethics, and integrity? Briefly, according to Lisa Zippo, 1998, every organization has a culture, and that is how things get done in that organization. A way of doing things that employees meet and become absorbed into it. An organizational ethical culture influences everyone working in that organization and the work they do. The ethical culture does not change easily. Anybody, if there is a structure, an ethical structure in Nddc, any new staff coming in must adhere to that structure and will ensure that the culture of Nddc subsumes that person's personal attitude. Consequently, organizational culture, ethics, and integrity is said to exist when the organization's operational systems, corruption prevention strategies, which is what we are doing now, and ethical standards are fully integrated to achieve its purpose. Fully integrated to achieve its purpose. Why do employees behave unethically? An authority called Angela Gota in 1998 has shown that unethical behavior, such as corruption, is likely to occur when there is opportunity, when there is room, when there is freedom. For example, through poor systems and procedures in the establishment. Anything goes. B, little fear of exposure or likelihood of detection. People are not afraid, they are not scared. They do the corruption with impunity. For example, lack of organizational reporting mechanism or on an organization's poor history in dealing with reports of corruption. Lack of ethical leadership and support. For example, unclear message about what is acceptable, setting poor examples, failure to enforce ethical behavior. Cultural acceptance of aberrant behavior, both within the organization and the wider community, including self-excusing rationalization, e.g. it didn't hurt anyone, therefore we can always do it. It's a standard business practice. It's not illegal. So abnormality has become a norm. That is what operates in different organizations in Nigeria. Why are people corrupt again? Like I said earlier, the opportunity has to be there. An opportunity can be created by the CEO, the MD of Nddc. He can create it. He can decide to sideline the other employees and bring his own group, to do what? Pressure from from those who appointed them. And then, of course, rationalization that what I'm doing is right. After all, the people who appointed me, they are the ones that are asking for this request. They call this the fraud triangle. The fraud triangle. You can stop corruption, ladies and gentlemen. We can stop corruption if we want. Unethical behavior is also common in large organizations like NNPC, FIRS, the Central Bank of Nigeria, NPA, NIMASA, Nddc, the police force, National Assembly, Government House, etc. Now, where such organizations have not given premium to organizational culture, they need to, because an organization's ethical culture has a strong influence over employee conduct. Why do we need strong ethics in Nddc? Why do we need strong ethics in Nddc? It is a public sector agency created to provide specific quality and cost-effective services to communities in the Niger Delta. So if you are an employee there, this is an opportunity for you to understand that you are not just there to collect salaries and emoluments. Nddc is funded with public funds, which must be accounted for. The prosperity of millions of people who do not have any other means of survival depend on the services provided by employees of Nddc. Unethical behavior of employees can lead to loss of public trust. Such a loss can further undermine the ability of public sector agencies to provide effective and equitable services, especially to those most in need. Remember, Buhari orders criminal investigation into 6 trillion investment in Nddc for 19 years. This is not a palatable information. This is something that every employee of Nddc should be ashamed of and should not be proud of. This is a strong indictment. Whether it is true or false, you should always avoid this kind of media classifications. This is a strong indictment. Revelation of a white-collar crime within the commission. That's what it means. That there is white-collar crime within the commission. The approach for change is to inherit an existing procedures, accounting and audit processes to forestall financial leakages, administration of sanctions for deterrence, institution linking, and effective ethics and integrity system. Possible consequences. Now, if we allow, or as employees of Nddc, or as political appointees of Nddc, if you allow this kind of statements to continue, there are chances that the act setting up Nddc could be abrogated, or there could be amendment to the act establishing Nddc. These are things that should guide you to be, to check you. And if this happens, it means that everybody there, whether you're a director or you're a low-level staff, you'll be redeployed to other places. Building systemic ethical values. One of the crux of the matter that has brought us here is that we must begin to learn to build foundations, building systemic ethical values, organizational values, principles, norms, ethics, benchmarks, and reward sanction systems are not for decoration, for admiration. They are not for decoration, please, for people to admire. Rather, they are expected to be given life by putting them into practice in their completeness, in their wholeness, in their fullness. This is because they all constitute the fundamentals of every organization. If results and positive outcomes are to be taken seriously, consequently, ethical conduct of all employees must be sincere, practical, and timely demonstration of these values, principles, norms, integrity, benchmarks, and reward or sanction system in the management of resources, so that both personal and organizational goals can be achieved easily. Key requirements for building systemic ethics and integrity in Nddc. Principle number one, principled pragmatic leadership. Principled pragmatic leadership. Exemplary leadership is essential. In other words, leadership must be exceptionally transparent, honest, and clear in practical terms to trigger the workforce to willingly produce results based on shared vision that will make a difference in the day-to-day work plan, so that both management and non-management staff will be happy, including their families. Quality operational management. Honest performance management system is very important. The culture or practice where management decisions are seen as fair, equitable, with strong internal processes and procedures is very helpful in strengthening a good ethics and value systems amongst the rank and file. Effective recruitment process. The recruitment of competent persons into the commission must be seen as vital. Such intakes must have the skills, integrity, and knowledge to perform. Pragmatic crisis management. Crisis in any condition that is hostile to endanger people, property, interrupt business, injure reputation, or adversely impact on shared value or contract, according to Benson Johnston. Therefore, institutional proficiency is strongly advised. Attitude and the power of choice. Attitude and the power of choice. Whether Nddc will live for the next 100 years or will live for a very short while is in your hands. It's in the hands of your leaders and, of course, the employees. There is always a choice. Any of you can decide to go to join an NPC or somewhere else. Any of you can decide to resign and go face private business. But for now, choice is the starting point of everything we do in life. The paths our lives take are largely determined by the choices we make day in and day out. And that's why this seminar is important too, because you have taken a choice. You have made a choice to ensure that whether it is bitter or better, it is your choice. Bitter or better, it is your choice. Attitude is 100% of all that you do. Attitude is 100% of all that you do. Identified through self-awareness, the attitude and participants. These are some useful propositions for Nddc on strategic corruption prevention. I don't know whether you have them here already, but if you do, I think perhaps there will be a need to review them. There has to be a code of conduct for employees, so clients. Clients here, I mean contractors, because the bad name or negative projection for name that is given to Nddc comes from the contractors, and less of the employees. Because a contractor is somebody who has a contract for Nddc will come and tell you that, well, I'm giving this, I'm giving that, I'm giving that, therefore X, Y, Z. Ethics and compliance handbook, you must produce it and publish it for every employee so that they know their limits. We need to design and implementation of anti-corruption strategies for Nddc. A program for fighting corruption, like you have done, so like we are doing now. Ensure regular audit of commissions as prescribed by law. This one is easy, but the authorities there and the scheduled officers or desk officers can ensure that can meet the MD at the appointed time. That look, Mr. MD, it is time for this commission to be audited. Then again, like we do in ICPC, we usually have a 5-year strategic action plan with goals and performance indicators. We can also adopt that, have a 5-year strategic action plan, where you can now measure your movement on the direction of the organization. You can also have a public, they look simple, but they are never there. They are not pretty. We have them in our brains and our eyes and in our what's it called, minute books, but they are not printed. They are no handbooks. It happens to most 90% of organizations in Nigeria. It's not only the Nddc. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to round up now. There are 4 certainties that are inevitable in every human organization. 4 certainties. Number 1, you have options. You have option whether to continue to work there or to exit. You have an option to encourage destruction of the commission so that people will suffer. Or you have the option to better the place, like as we are doing now. Number 2, crisis. Every organization must face some level of crisis. You know that you have faced a lot of crisis at the management level. Up to now, you don't have the board. It's a type of crisis. But there are some things you cannot control. But those things that you can control, like ethics, you have to control them. Number 3, decision making. From director level down or director level down, you must take decisions that you know that are geared towards the positive development of the commission. And then, of course, change. Every decision must learn to change. After this seminar, I'm sure a group will sit down, a committee will sit down to look at the papers that are presented to see how you can now change. I have concluded my presentation, and I thank you for this invitation. I would have loved to be there in person, and as a former secretary of ICPC, I never set my foot in that place, and I regret it. If I had the opportunity of seeing one-on-one to discuss these issues, perhaps it would have been much better, and I would have been a happier person. However, I say thank you for this invitation. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Elvis. Thank you. Thank you. Please, another round of applause for Dr. Elvis. May I quickly invite the IACO, Dr. Effiong, for his remarks.
The organizers of this workshop, the zonal director of EFCC, other senior directors and other persons attending the workshop with us. You will agree with us that our staying here is worth the while. I want to thank the last speaker very well. I was particularly thrilled when he mentions things like on organizational ethics and integrity, organizational ethics, integrity and attitude. I wouldn't, well, we are online, but the truth must be told. When we came here, I was confronted with situations where you get to state offices, you will not find directors on duty, and yet he's taking salaries on a monthly basis. I had a director was earning salaries, and nobody saw him. The director led delegations to me. Detail for Cross River State Director, they led delegations. If you go there now, you won't find some of them. And I had no choice than to say, look, if we allow this, what institution are we running? How do you want to develop the other directors, other staff coming up, the new MD, that you don't see him in 6 months? Of what use? Of 3 capacity of affecting everybody. But thank God, hope is not lost. With the new Nddc, I still have good directors. For instance, I have a young man working with me, director of sustainable, director of special duty in my office in America. We have internal audit, DHR, legal, education, health, new media, admin, finance, audits, even procurement directors, a lot of them. You can find them always on sit. When you get to the, you call them, where are you? I'm on sit. When you get to the office, you see them on sit. One day I got to the office by 8:30. I said, let me see the director of corporate affairs. He was already seated. He says, I'm here. And we had to discuss a few things. That is not to say that he's doing extremely well. We have, but you find him on sit. That is organizational culture and ethics. And these are the things we need to imbibe to carry the institution forward. You call legal man, where are you? He tells you he's on sit. So whatever you do has the capacity to cascade. My prayer is that we wouldn't just live here the way we came. By the time we finish here tomorrow, I'm sure the organizational culture and ethics would have changed, and we would have learned new things to move Nddc forward. You may not end here. You will move to other parastatals. You can move higher. God can take you to other places. You have to, at any point in time you find yourself somewhere, you have to say, what mark am I going to leave behind? As an interim administrator, what will people remind me? What will people remember me for? I came in. How many projects was I able to commission? How many abandoned projects was I able to complete and commission for people's use? These are the things. So this is a very good. I want to thank my brother and my friend. We always communicate, but for issues of time, I want to thank him for staying back and the thought-provoking lectures he has given to us. I went to see of the chairman of Code of Conduct who came here himself. the professor. He did well. You will agree with me that whatever little amount of money we have spent for this program, we have not done badly. I want to thank the organizers, particularly the Director of Procurement, Director of Legal, and all those persons who anchored this program. I want to say a very big thank you to you. I want to say a very big thank you to the media men, the gentlemen in the procurement department, everybody that worked together to put this workshop together. I want to thank all of you. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, IACU. Thank you, and God bless you. Another round of applause for him, please. May I invite the Director of Procurement for the closing formalities. Thereafter, we'll rise for closing prayers, lunch, we go. Tomorrow is another day. Director of Procurement, please. Mr. Alex Nddc.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press. It is an honor and privilege to stand before you to give this closing remark. It's been a day well spent. We still have loaded topics to discuss. I will be taking a break today to take lunch and disperse. So we start early tomorrow. It's 9 a.m. No opening formalities. 9 a.m. we hit the ground running. Tomorrow we still have presentations from ICPC, particularly. And after ICPC presentation tomorrow, we shall be having a corporate presentation from the Garden City Premier Business School. We'll have topics like the impact of anti-corruption, transparency, and monitoring unit, Act 2, and system study and review in MDAs, the ICPC perspective. And Garden City Business School will be taking us on corruption, the bane of public procurement, concept, causes, and classification. Garden City Business School will also take us on direct and indirect impact of corruption in public procurement. Please take note. And finally, red flags and early warning signals in public procurement. The commission is not as yet what it's supposed to be, but we're grateful to God that we have a leadership and management that is desired and working towards a better Nddc. The new Nddc is planned to be an institution that departs from the past of whatever negative perspective the public has of us into the future that is more transparent, more compliant, and totally according to standard operating procedures. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to say this section will be coming to an end after the lunch break. And please, we will hit the ground running as early as 9 a.m. tomorrow. We have ICPC and we have presentation from Garden City Premier Business School. Please take note. It will not be nice for us to be participants and hosts of this program, and then the ICPC group walks in. It is important for us to be here early. And please take note, attendance is being taken and is being taken seriously. I'm not the provost or the monitor of the program, the IA is. Just information for us. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I believe we've gained something I will put to practice. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, may we rise for the closing prayers. Thereafter the lunch and we'll go. May I respectfully invite the Director of Education, Ms. Phil Oputa, to come and close us with a word of prayer and bless the meal. Director of Education, Phil Oputa, please.
Let us pray. In the name of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Father, we thank you for leading us thus far. We give you thanks for the little uproar and taking control. We surrender the rest of the program into your hands. And as we go to take our meal, we ask you, Lord, that you bless the food that has been provided, that it will nourish us in Jesus' name. And even as we look forward to a better Nddc, we ask that you give our leaders the wisdom and the enablement to achieve it. In Jesus' most precious name we pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, ma'am.